Okay, coming on up. If you want to use weights, then small weights in your hands. If you're having problems with your joints, if you're feeling achy, then probably leave the weights off. So you're not loading your joints up too much. Focus more on your precision of movement and your control, and focus on that element. Have a little rock backwards and forwards. Let's just remind ourselves of positioning to get started. Once your feet are well grounded, good position through the feet with those little spaces underneath the arches, soft knees and open hips. Gently engage that pelvic floor so you feel a bit of tension between your pelvic bones at the front, and then grow tall through the whole spine. Lengthening, growing, crown of the head towards your ceiling. Bring the arms until your palms are facing up. Elbows are just bent to 90 and tucked in at your waist. Keep the shoulders open through their fronts. Shoulder blades in your pockets. Good. Breath in. And then breath out. Pivoting around those elbows as they're bent in at your waist. Come back in. So they stay at 90. And your shoulders are rotating. Opening through their fronts. Getting that little stretch into the fronts of the shoulders, but also try and feel an extra engagement between the shoulder blades as you draw them down into your pockets. Good. Aim to keep your glutes soft so you're not clenching your bottom. Instead, think about maintaining that gentle lift up with the pelvic floor. Good. We'll add to it. So you float up onto your toes, take your hands out to the sides, palms down, back in, little knee bend. Good. So try and make sure that the legs stay parallel when you bend into the knees, that they come down over your toes and don't roll in. Probably stretch into your calf muscles. That's what gives you that end point to your little squat. Keeping your back nice and upright and stretching into the calves. Remember to keep your shoulder tops down as well, away from your ears. Don't let your neck and top of shoulder muscles tense. Don't let your shoulders creep up. We'll just do a couple more. Get your coordination going. Lovely. And then lower everything back down. And we'll continue the warm up with walking. So finding tiptoe balance and lowering one heel, back up, other heel, back up. Good. Find that pattern of movement through the legs, but with the body just going straight up and down, with the pelvis staying level. Bring the arms in when you're ready. Taking it quick if you want to, careful not to grip with your toes. You come up onto the forefeet, but don't grip your toes into the mat. Keep that tension in the middle, in the center of your body. Steady breath. If you can, up your nose, out your mouth. Good. Nice and quick now. Switch, switch, switch. And warming up, because next we're going to come to roll downs for our range of movement. Good. Slow it. And relax. Okay. So you can come straight into roll downs from this position if you want to. But if you want to add to it, a little bit of tiptoes for some more. Float your arms up, come up onto tiptoes, find that balance, and then lower your arms, lower your heels, and take your chin onto your chest and start your roll down. Working your way through each level, breathing in at the bottom. Out breath in, tucking your tailbone, rebuilding, restacking, all the way up, and you can come into the next one, lifting the arms, floating the heels. If you don't like this version, just do what we would normally do from a static standing position. bit more dynamic here, adding that lift and balance. Good, just one more, your version, last one. And out, breath back up. Super. And we'll bring it down to the mat. Keep your weightables or your small weights if you want them. Make sure you've got your head support. One thin, one thicker. And come down onto the mat carefully. You're going to stay with mobilizing for the first exercise. If you want to put your thicker cushion between your knees to keep your knees more like hip width apart and just keep a gentle pressure in on that, then that can really help you to isolate the movement. Just keep the pelvis position nice and consistent, and then we'll get lots of lovely back movement. So bring your arms out to the side, shoulder height. Check you're resting on your shoulder blades, shoulder tops in or distance from your ears. Lengthen the back of your neck with a gentle chin tuck. And also check in with your low back position, that you're not flattened into the mat, you're not overarched. Find that neutral spine. And we'll move on an out breath. So take a breath to prepare. And then out breath, the knees over to one side. So if you've got that other cushion in, you're just gently squeezing it. The ankles are staying together though. And roll the whole lower body over, keeping the upper body planted on the mat. Out breath back. Don't worry if you haven't got anything to put between your knees. You can work as we normally do, just keeping the knees together, ankles together. Looking towards your opposite hand just completes the spinal twist, with the knees going one way and your side going the other. Moving on the out breath, taking a breath in while you stretch, deepening the stretch. And then using the strength of your out breath to lift those legs back over. Just for one more go. And then rest. Good. We'll take that support away, make sure that you're back to neutral, but with the feet now hip width apart. And we'll come on to do some hip twists, now at level 1, so for control. Out breath, one knee out to the side. In breath back. So just focus in on keeping the hip bones pointing, or these pelvic bones at the front pointing straight up at the ceiling. While you allow the hip movement, knee to drop out to the side smoothly as you can, allowing as much movement as you can control. So if you want to progress this level 1 version, you could use your weighted balls alongside with your arms hovering up off the mat. If you are loading up the exercises, that's an option. You can keep working there with or without the arm hover, or if you want to take it to the next level, float one leg up and join it with the second leg, and we'll do level 3. Just check you're still neutral, check your low tummy is engaged and flat before you start opening. The knee position is straight over the hips so that the thighs are vertical. The knees stay at 90. That doesn't change. We're just opening up the hip. Get bones pointing towards the ceiling. Soft through your upper body. Out, breath out. In, breath back. For our last couple. One to each side, whichever version you're doing. Good. And then rest down. All right, and we'll open out the fronts of these hips with some one leg stretches. So again, if you're wanting to do a more advanced version of the level 1, just bob your arms up with or without the weights. Leave them resting if you prefer. Out breath, heels slide away. In breath back. So we're really thinking about any tightness in the fronts of the hips, opening out. Without that tightness in the hip flexor, pulling your low back position out. So you really maintain that consistent position by your low back as these hips are opening. We'll stick at level 1 for now, but like I said, add in the hover of the arms if you want to. You notice a big difference, especially if you've got weights in your hands. So make sure you can keep the workload below the level of your belly button. Drawing up that pelvic floor will help you to really center it. Let's keep going for a couple more. One more to each side. And then rest. Good, so we'll do some scissors, and once we've done some scissors at level 1, then we'll progress it to that one leg stretch level 2, so it's a bit of a combination of those two. We're working now on just out breathing to float the leg up. In breath down, out breath the other leg, in breath down. So the precision of movement here is maintaining your knee angle so that all the movement to get the foot off the mat is coming from your hip joint. Again, soft through the upper body, or even hover those arms if you want to. When you're ready, we'll start adding in the one leg stretch to this. So once you've floated the leg up, pause with it there and have a breath. Then out breath it away. In breath back and down. This is our really slow version. Out breath up. Pause to breathe in so that you can use your out breath as you push that leg away. And if you're okay with it and you want to, you can keep the arms hovering off the mat. But if when you're pushing your leg away in space, you feel that you need more grounding with the mat, just rest the arms back down. There shouldn't be any straining in your low back. All the work should feel here. It's just remembering that pause, isn't it? So that you can push away on your out breath. Good, and we'll just do one more to each side. And then rest. Good. So in this position, we'll finish with scissors too. So coming up into tabletop, unless your back's not liking this, if you need to carry on working with your feet in contact with the mat, then scissors level 1 is fine. From here, out breath a heel down or toe tap down, in breath back. Alternating sides. Good, maintaining neutral, maintaining a flat low tummy, engaged, your lowest tummy working back towards your spine. Always the hip joint moving. So just notice that 90-degree angle at the knee doesn't change. That's what will keep you working hard. It's easy to bend the knee to tap down. One more to each side. And bring those knees in for a hug. And give your back a nice stretch after that. We're also going to give the fronts of thighs and the hip flexors a stretch when we do some shoulder bridges here. So if you want to slip your head support away, and when you bring your feet back to the mat, bring them nice and close to your bottom. Check in with neutral again. Arms alongside, hands just resting lightly on the mat. You can even turn them over so the palms are up. Breath in. And then breath out to tip back into your low back space and start peeling up and away from the mat. Each vertebrae, one by one, starting to engage those glutes, lifting from behind the hips, breathing in at the top. And then out, breath back down the way you came, contacting the mat with each vertebrae one at a time. That's neutral. Breath. And out, sit back, peel up, glutes working. Feel that stretch down the fronts of the thighs, fronts of the hips, really open them. And returning to the mat. And if you want to start doing some of your one leg version, then you can. Either working towards it or going for the full lift. Up onto your toes, and if you can, straighten the leg out. Back and down. So if you haven't done Pilates for a couple of weeks or 3 weeks, then it's absolutely fine to feel it's quite hard work to get going again. So don't worry if you need to take it back a step from where you left it. You'll soon get back to it. Better to focus in on that precision, really good positioning, engaging the right muscles. But if you can keep your hips up, you can do some alternating sides. Important to keep the pelvis nice and level, keep the workload in the glutes. Pressure through the heel of that standing leg, the one that's not lifting. Let's make these the last couple. And then bring it back to the mat. Okay, I'm going to turn onto our sides. Let's start with clown. So your options here, If you like to, you can keep this between your knees so that your top knee doesn't drop down and strain your hip. But if you're fine without it, just leave it out with your ankles together, ankles on the mat or lifted off the mat. Or if you want to come straight into doing your level 3s, then straighten your lower leg out and have this larger block in front of you. Okay, so that's if you wanted to come straight into your level 3s. Otherwise, check your alignment, make sure your hips are stacked, you've got a little space under your waist. And we'll out breath the knee to open the hip. In breath down. So while you're getting going, you can just scan down through the body and check in with a few points. The back of your neck's nice and long, your chin is gently tucked back, not forced onto your chest, just gently. Opening the top shoulder, making sure it's drawn away from your ear. Keep lengthening that shoulder blade down into your back pocket. Good, aim to keep both sides of the waist long so you're not hitching through this top waist. And you maintain your little space underneath. Don't allow this top hip to roll back. So if anything, you're going to keep pushing the hip forward while you lift the knee up and back. Keep angling it slightly towards the mat in front of you. That's it, keeping the heels gently pressing into each other. Slow movement up and just as much control on the way back down. Out breath here. In breath down, keep going. I'm talking about breath. When you breathe in again, try and breathe into these side ribs, the very lower side ribs. Last couple. And then rest. Good. All right. You can give it a little stretch, but we're going to come into another hip exercise with the legs out straight. So lift and lower. One long line. Just check you can see your toes. Everything's in alignment. You're on your narrowest point. So careful not to roll back. Keep that top hip forward. Breath in and out. Okay, if you need your hand down, just pop it down to get you started, but try and keep it light. Take it away when you can. All from the hip joints. That's it, lifting the whole weight of that leg up, using your hip joint, using your glutes and your lateral thigh muscles. Keeping the top hip forward, but the leg staying back in line with your body will really engage your glutes. Being careful not to tip over into your little waist space at the top there. Those legs feeling heavy. Keep going for a couple more. Good, and rest. You can let both knees bend, bring the top one in, give it a hug over and across. Because on our sides, we're going to finish with lovely arm openings to stretch the upper back and chest. So you can just stack your knees. Try and get your hips and heels back in line with your shoulders. Your knees, you want them to stay down on the mat in front of you. but just change your arm position. So swing them round to the front. And if you want to, you can use a weight in your top hand to help overpress this mobilisation. Have a breath in and then out to open up. So keep that top hip angling forward in front, the mat in front of you as the centre of your chest opens to the ceiling. Breathe in. And breath back. Good, so lower body stillness, the knees stay down, the hip stays forward, the centre of your chest opens up. As much movement as you can manage, focusing on your upper back and chest. Making this next one your last. And then back. Good. And when you're ready, have a push up into sitting. We'll stick with our upper back for some simple twists. So in cross-legged sitting or kneeling if you prefer, or legs out in front if neither of those are good. You can sit on a cushion if you need to. Let's just try and get really lovely and upright. So grounded through both sitting bones, centre engaged. Grow really tall through the crown of your head and open those shoulders again. We'll keep the arms low. Breath in. Breath out to twist. Slightly pushing forward through that hip you're twisting towards. And then back. Same thing, breathe in while you're in the twist. Good. And we're going again. Think about growing taller as you twist. Don't collapse, instead spiral up. Good. So you can stay lower if you want to, bring your arms up higher. Either shoulder height or right up, fingers at your temples, elbows high, shoulders down. Taking that movement further up the spine. And last one to each side. And then back. Good. So coming on to our other side, we'll start with arm openings on this side, just to stick with our upper back mobility before doing the hip. So come down, give yourself your larger head support. Have your weight in your hand if you want it, if you used it before. Make sure that shoulder that you're resting on is away from your ear as well as the top one. Start whenever you're ready. And then just try and deepen the movement while you're breathing in. See if you can go a little bit further with subsequent repetitions. Always keeping the knee down in front of you, both knees down and together. Trying not to roll. Keep the top hip pointing straight at the ceiling. Okay, just one more. And then rest. Okay, not really a rest though because we haven't done the hip yet. I'm going to slightly change the head position, so take your lower arm out. We'll do clam, so your hips are staying bent, knees are staying bent. Just check you've got those hips and heels in line with your shoulder, and your heels lift if you're doing level 2. Still long through the waist there, engage through this low tummy, making sure your tummy is not sliding towards the mat. Try and just gently hold it back to the spine. And we'll work from here. Out, breath up. And breath down. Remember, you can scan your way down through your body, through your checkpoints, while you're working, making sure that you've got really good position. And that you're maintaining it while you move, with as much free movement through the hip as you can manage. Focusing in on working the glutes right into your back pocket, right behind the hip. Definitely feeling that I haven't done many of these recently. But it comes back quickly. Last few. Let's try and do 4. 4. Last couple. And then rest. All the way down and straighten the legs out. All right, just align. Make sure you've got good position. You're not rolling back before you start lifting and lowering. Good. Toes point on the way up. And the ankle flexes as you come down. Think of drawing a line with your toes, rubbing it out with your heel. Keeping that hip forward but leg back in line with your body. Still focusing on your glutes. It's not just the glutes, but we want them working. Use your hand if you need it, but keep it light. Take it away if you can. Let's keep going. 4 again, 4 of these. Last one, that one, all the way down. Good. Okay, and we'll just roll over onto our tummies using that head support that you've been on. Now for your forehead. If you want to use your small weights, we're taking them up overhead so that we can work on the arms for a bit. Take a moment aligning your body there with the leg through your low back. The legs are in no wider than your hips. Relaxed glutes and your arms overhead. Wide enough to draw your shoulders away from your ears. Let's go with a breath in to prepare, pelvic floor engaging, and then out breath and arm up to hover from the mat, in breath down. So alternate sides with that arm lift. Just make sure your body isn't rolling from side to side. So it's just coming from the shoulder joint and the shoulder girdle. Hips stay level and your body doesn't turn from side to side. Try and keep the legs heavy, the glutes stay soft. You actively think about lifting through your pelvic floor to keep your lower body engaged and involved. One more to each side of these arms. And then rest them. And while you rest your arms, if you can, just keep them there. Make sure your shoulder tops stay away from your ears. Re-lengthen your low back. This time we are going to be asking the glutes to work, so you can give them a good old squeeze if you want to. Clench your bottom cheeks, wake them up, make sure they're going to work for this lift. And one leg at a time we're going to lift from the hip, out breath up, in breath down. So alternating legs this time, out breath up, in breath down. You should feel it in your bottom on that side that you're lifting without your low back dipping. So don't worry about coming high with the leg. Keep the pelvis level. You're not tipping from side to side. Aiming to keep the knee as straight as you can to get the front of the thigh off. And if your arms are still overhead, see whether you can start joining in with them. Leg lifts with the opposite arm. Keep those shoulder tops away from your ears. Keep the forehead resting down and the back of the neck long. Like you're holding a peach under your chin. You go for a couple more. One more to each side. And then rest. Good, and have a push back. All the way back. Have a nice stretch of your low back. Taking your bottom to your heels. Reaching the fingertips forward. We're not done, we're just going to have a stretch. Before we do a little bit more for the abdominals, we'll do some leg pulling bones. Okay, so when you're ready, come back to 4-point kneel. So for our level ones, you stay in 4-point kneel. You stay here in a box-shaped position, but with the toes tucked under. And you can stick with that level. Or you can progress to level 2, or you can start at level 2 if you want to, with the hands further forward at the shoulder joints. All right, I'll come to that in a minute. Starting here, draw your shoulders away from your ears. Again, gently tuck your chin so that the crown of the head's pointing straight forward. Engage your pelvic floor to make sure this lowest tummy is involved. When you out breath, your knees to hover up. Just keep that little hover while you breathe in. And then lower back down. This is your preparation for plank. And this is level 1 preparation. It's about maintaining neutral spine and getting the weight going through your hands, shoulders and feet, but without taking it into full plank position. So if you want to do level 2, take your hands further forward, keep the hips starting over your knees, lift them into the hover and then slide into a full plank. You out breath back to the hover, the knees are still above the mat and then lower. If this is too much, just stick to the box shape version. The key is making sure you maintain your neutral spine position so that when you do come into a full plank, you don't just let your pelvis drop. I'm always talking about your planks being nice and low, which is true. You want to try and be one long line, one straight line, but I'd rather see you too high than dropping your pelvis and overarching your low back. Last 2 of whichever version you're doing. And then rest. Untuck your toes. We'll stay in box shape position, so bring your hands back to under your shoulders if they weren't. Reposition, make sure you're in neutral, and we'll finish with some threading the needle. Or if you prefer, do some cat and cow. So see which you feel like your back needs. So if you want to do some cat and cow, alternating between that sort of humped stretch for a breath in, and then your dipped stretch for a breath in, you can do that. Or come to neutral and practice your twists. Feeding the hand through, breathing into stretch, and then taking the hand back and up in the opposite direction for a stretch. Alternating sides or doing a couple to each side at a time if you prefer. This is your practice, so work where feels right for you. Working on the areas that you feel you need to. One more repetition. Good. And then have another sit back onto your heels, one more stretch. Tuck your toes under and we'll come back for a roll up, back into standing. And what we'll do to finish is our last couple of roll ups, not like at the start where we came up onto tiptoes, instead a more traditional version. But if you would like to, you can add the crossed legs to make it more challenging. You can take one leg over, so your base of support is narrow. You're also going to get more of a stretch into that neural tissue, so go easy. Breath in. And then out, take your chin down, rolling through your upper back, mid-back, working towards your low back. Try and make it a smooth, cog-like motion. Breathe in at the bottom, and out, breath yourself back up. And of course, if you cross your legs, have a go from the other way. Open those shoulders, grow really tall before you start. head floats up. Well done. Finish with a couple of rolls back through the shoulders, with those feet back to parallel and underneath your hips. Lovely. Finish with the shoulders back and down, and we'll just take the ear over towards one shoulder for a stretch. Keep the tailbone gently tucked, the centre engaged, long low back. And give the other side a stretch. Well done. All finished.